It was proof that something pure and beautiful could exist in a world that had treated us like animals. Some of you know me as Fatty Smalls, some as Top Cat, some just as Steve. But in the late 80s and early 90s, if you knew me at all, you knew me from the darkened warehouses, the muddy fields, the sweat-drenched arenas, and the smoky basements where the music never stopped and the world outside simply ceased to exist. I came up hard, wrongfully incarcerated as a youth, framed for crimes I never committed, isolated from my family, abused in an adolescent unit that was supposed to help me. I am telling you this not for sympathy, but for context. Because when Acid House exploded in Britain in 1988 and rolled into 89, 90, 91, and beyond, the youth of Britain were waking up. It was 1986. A DJ named DJ Pierre, along with Spanky and Herb J, collectively known as Future, were messing around with a Roland TB 303 bassline synthesizer. Roland made it in 1981 to simulate bass guitar, discontinued it 2 years later, and musicians hated it. But Pierre and Future did not want it to sound like a bass guitar. They cranked the resonance, twisted the cutoff frequency, set the accent to maximum, and let it scream. The result was Acid Tracks, a 10-minute hypnotic alien monster of a track that DJ Ron Hardy played at the Music Box Club in Chicago and sent the crowd absolutely mental. The name acid did not come from the drug, it came from the slang term acid burn, meaning stealing another DJ's style. But the drugs caught up with the name soon enough. In Britain, the connection was made in Ibiza in the summer of 1987. 4 young men from London, Danny Rampling, Paul Oakenfold, Nicky Holloway, and Johnny Walker, discovered Alfredo's legendary sets at Amnesia, an open-air club where music was a fluid blend of house, funk, indie, and electronic sound. They came back to London changed men. By 1988, Danny Rampling had opened Shoom in a tiny gym in Southwark, South London, holding barely 300 people. Paul Oakenfold opened Spectrum at Heaven on Oxford Street. Mike Pickering and Graham Park were destroying minds every Friday night at the Hacienda in Manchester. The Entertainment's Increased Penalties Act of 1990 increased fines for illegal raves from £2,000 to £20,000. Phone lines were set up. You would ring a number, get a recorded message with the location, and sprint to your car. First synthesized by Merck Pharmaceuticals in 1912, rediscovered by chemist Alexander Shulgin in the 1970s, it flooded your brain with serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine simultaneously. The walls between people dissolved. A room full of strangers became a room full of brothers and sisters. The music did not just go in through your ears, it went through your skin, through your bones. A kick drum was not just a sound, it was a heartbeat shared by 500 people at once. The early pills, Doves, Disco Biscuits, Dennis the Menace, Love Doves were often purer, cleaner. You would buy them for 5, 10, sometimes 15 pounds depending on where you were. His voice was a weapon, deep and authoritative, but with a warmth that made you feel like he was talking specifically to you in the middle of a crowd of 5,000. By 1990, promoters were charging £20 entry, selling watered-down drinks at extortionate prices, and the soul was being commodified. From the ashes of the original spirit, a new movement rose. The Free Party, the Sound System, the truly autonomous zone. Sound systems like Spiral Tribe, Bedlam, DIY, Circus Warp, Exodus, and Evolution were not running businesses. They were running revolutions. They loaded massive speakers into transit vans, found unlicensed spaces, disused factories, open fields, ancient stone circles, and simply set up and played. For free. For everyone. Spiral Tribe, based in North London, became the most iconic and most controversial. In May 1992, they organized a free rave at Lechlade in Gloucestershire that attracted over 40,000 people. The police were overwhelmed, the raving went on for 3 days, the tabloids called it a convoy of filth. Working alongside MC Shaba D, razor sharp with impeccable timing, together they formed one of the most formidable vocal partnerships the scene ever produced. Breakbeats, sampled drum breaks chopped and rearranged at higher and higher tempos, were being layered beneath acid bass lines and piano stabs. Vocals lifted from soul records were pitched up until they became alien and barely human. This was the birth of UK hardcore. The tempo crept from 120 BPM to 130 to 140 to 160. Labels like Moving Shadow, Reinforced Records, XL Recordings, and React were releasing seminal tracks week after week. DJ SY, based in the East Midlands, became the resident DJ at the legendary Helter Skelter Nights and one of the most beloved voices of the old-school hardcore scene. His sets were physical experiences, not just things you heard, but things you felt in your chest and behind your eyes. I was at a Helter Skelter night in Rugby when SY played a 3-hour set that I genuinely believe changed my understanding of what music could do. And Rage itself, Fabio and Groove Rider's residency at Heaven under the Arches at Charing Cross, Thursday nights from 1990 to 1993, was where drum and bass was essentially invented in public in real time, in front of an audience willing to follow them anywhere. Raw, dangerous, misunderstood, and absolutely electric with life. Jungle emerged from the collision of reggae sound system culture and the accelerating breakbeat tradition of UK hardcore. Underneath those blazing syncopated drums, the bass line slowed down. They rolled and rumbled at halftime, massive and cavernous, shaped by the tradition of reggae and dancehall and dub. The contrast between ferocious drums and languorous bass was intoxicating. Jungle was also the sound of Britain's black community claiming ownership of a scene that had, at the commercial level, been increasingly whitewashed. Artists like Goldie, LTJ Bukem, 4Hero, Shy FX, and Shut Up and Dance were creating music genuinely unlike anything that had existed before. The pirate radio stations were the lifeblood of this entire ecosystem. The free party scene was a shadow of what it had been, but it refused to die. Home Secretary Michael Howard pushed through legislation specifically designed to criminalize our culture. Section 63 of the Act gave police powers to stop raves, and it defined a rave as a gathering of 100 or more people where music was played that was characterized by the emission of a succession of repetitive beats. That phrase became infamous. Repetitive beats. They literally wrote a law about repetitive beats. The act allowed police to seize equipment, arrest anyone who did not leave when directed, and fine organizers tens of thousands of pounds. After the Castle Morton Common Festival in May 1992, where between 20,000 and 40,000 people gathered for a week-long free festival in Worcestershire with Spiral Tribe at the center, the government decided enough was enough. 13 members of Spiral Tribe were charged. The trial cost £4 million. After 4 months, all 13 were acquitted. But the law was coming regardless. In the summer of 1994, as the Criminal Justice Bill worked its way through Parliament, thousands marched down Whitehall. The repetitive beats were not the sound of mindless hedonism. They were the heartbeat of a generation finding itself. LTJ Bukem was making music simultaneously faster and more sophisticated than almost anything else. Tracks like Logical Progression were built on jazz samples, lush string arrangements, and sub-bass frequencies that seemed to come from somewhere beneath the floor. Goldie, born Clifford Joseph Price from Wolverhampton, raised in care homes, graffiti artist turned music revolutionary, released Timeless in 1995. The 17-minute centerpiece Inner City Life was a piece of music that belonged not just to rave culture but to the history of British music, full stop. Andy C. out of Edmonton, North London, pioneered the technique known as double dropping, playing 2 tracks simultaneously with bass lines hitting at exactly the same moment, creating a sound that was physically overwhelming. His label Ram Records became one of the most important institutions in drum and bass. The tape pack culture that carried all of this music across Britain, C90 cassettes in clear plastic cases sold for £1 or £2 at the exit of every major event, was how provincial kids like me discovered what was happening at the front lines of the scene. I had hundreds of tapes. My bedroom was wallpapered with rave flyers, and the windowsill was a line of cassette boxes.